I must admit I was never great at science at school. And in our school we did have a science laboratory. And our science teacher was a Mr. Coleman. And we called him Dracula because he had hair growing on the back of his hands. We were incredibly cruel. We were unbelievably cruel that we did that. And I think he knew we called him Dracula. And all I can ever remember from science class is being regularly chased out of the science class by him for mixing the wrong stuff with the wrong stuff and getting a bang, and I could never get the hang of the litmus paper. So that was basically me and science. However, I have great respect and great regard for those who are people of science, in every sense of the word. And the most brilliant mind ever, or so they say, Isaac Newton, him in particular, a single law that explained the fall of earthly bodies and the movement of the planets is all due to this man, Isaac Newton. Just think of it as a simple law of gravity that in the law of physics explains just so many things to us. The simple explanation why we don't fall off the earth. Because if you think too much about it, you just might fall off with the sense of this is beyond my comprehension. The force between two objects is based on the product of their masses, divided by the square of their masses. Basically, the heavier the two objects are, the more force there is between them, assuming the distance between them remains or stays the same. Now, you all understand that, because I'm bluffing here. However, I have a sensor. Newton discovered that when an apple fell from a tree, this is an easier one, when an apple fell from a tree onto his head, he got a bit of a headache. No, that's not true. He discovered why rain falls, why a leaf falls, and why we fall, and it's gravity. Now, I know Einstein said a lot more about it, but I would only hurt my head if I tried to even begin to understand anything Einstein ever said. But he explained in far more detail what Newton had set out to explain to all of us. The simple law that controlled everything we understand as physics and the universe. Like, it might be a competition to decide which one was the cleverest. Because Einstein once said, and I think this is one of the most profound statements ever, God does not play dice with the universe. God does not play dice with the universe. So therefore there must be some reason, some essential concept, mathematical equation called God that created the universe. It just made no sense to Einstein that the universe should be ruled just by chance. And that made no sense to Einstein, one of the greatest minds that ever lived. Einstein was raised as a Jew, and later he referred to himself as agnostic. He didn't embrace the concept of a personal God, but he expressed admiration for the harmony of the universe and the hand that created it. He made sure to express he was not traditionally religious, but neither was he an atheist. He maintained that the concept of God was just too vast for the human mind to even begin to comprehend. Through a glass darkly. This is the mind of Einstein. Whereas Newton was a deeply religious man. And of course he is most famous for his scientific discoveries. He was also known for his theological works. He was not orthodox. He was private and rejected the concept of the Trinity. He was Arian in that sense. He believed in the one God, as in a theological position. He shared many beliefs with the Socians, then a Polish Unitarian Reformation movement, but he was a committed religious person. Now, I don't really want to talk about their great scientific achievements, but here were two of the greatest minds that have ever lived, the greatest minds of physics, and yet they were both religious in their own way. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment you have to become a great scientist to be religious and believe in God. What I'm actually saying is the arrogance of people who say that those who commit to faith, those who are religious, really haven't got a lot going on for themselves. It's just absolute arrogance. And it is the arrogance of the secular world we live in when we hear that. We are led to believe that to be a person of faith or religious practice is somewhat backward. And yet we think of these two great minds, and many others. The mind of Joseph Priestley, who I read about earlier on. There's a story, it's a brilliant story. It's a story of a woman, and she's at a party, and she meets a gentleman at the party. And lucky enough, Snow Patrol weren't there to get her. And he engaged her in conversation. And discovering during the conversation over a glass of something, he discovered she was a Catholic. And not only was she a Catholic, she announced she was a practicing Catholic. And he laughed and thought this was so amusing. Oh dear, practicing Catholic, you're a Catholic. And he professed his atheism to her. Then he proceeded to ask her how she understood this place, the earth, the universe. How did we all get here? And could she explain this and her God? And could she begin to tell about the theory of evolution? And she said, or at least she informed them, that on that level and intellectually, she was informed by George Lemaitre, and his Big Bang theory, and his brilliant scientific mind, which was able to explain the beginning of the universe, etc. He was highly amused. He hadn't heard of Lemaitre. So she informed them that Lemaitre was a Catholic priest. And it was Richard Dawkins, by the way, who told that story. And remember, Richard Dawkins is the author of The God Delusion. And Richard Dawkins said he told that story himself, nearly against himself, because Richard Dawkins professes to be an atheist. But he told that story about that woman and George Lemaitre because he said he was getting incredibly fed up with the arrogance of smug new atheism, who regarded religion as just being ignorant. Now, Lemaitre was a Belgian priest, who also happened to be, as well as being a priest, celebrating Mass every day, as priests do, who just so happened to be a theoretical physicist, making major contributions to cosmology and astrophysics, as your average priest does every day. Dermot, you will tell me about that. That's who he was. How dare anyone think that anybody who is committed to ministry or the priesthood would not have a brain to comprehend the world. Not only that, but we would be educated to explain to others, and some of our new secularists, how indeed the world and the universe works. Now, I know many people here in this church have a difficulty with the innate binary fundamentalism of many religions, and we might enjoy a little bit of it this afternoon across the road, who will be here to tell us that we're sinful and heretic, a bunch of heretics. But that is not enough reason to understand why people are fundamentalist or binary in their belief. Is just not enough reason to say that religion is not necessary in our world today, or to turn your back, if you're drawn to faith, on a religious belief. If you feel within yourself a struggle between the scientific world and a religious self, it is just not right not to succumb to that, in my opinion, because you are told by those who I believe know less anyway, that you cannot embrace both. Religion evolves as we evolve, and we are continuously still evolving. And time is still, as it changes and changes, there are still revelations being made to us. In revelations in all their majesty, through music, science, physics, arts, and the human capacity for human love. Even love is evolving and being explained more to us. Science exploring the how. Science exploring the how of the universe through discovery, observation, and experimentation. While religion explains the meaning behind existence. They are the views of Father George Lemaitre. The views of George Lemaitre suggest that on our own, neither science nor religion can fully explain each other, and that they need each other to work in harmony for a better understanding of our existence and who we are. God bless you. Amen.